Excitement is building as we get closer to production at the Toyota battery plant.
That massive $14 billion facility at the Greensboro-Randolph megasite is just weeks away from making their first shipments.
In the country, there's going to be a very good chance that your new Toyota hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or electric vehicle will be powered by a battery that comes off the line in this facility.
It begins quietly. Not with explosions, not with protests, not even with a headline bold enough to capture the scale of what's happening. It begins with hesitation, boardrooms filled with silence, executives staring at charts that no longer make sense, factories running just a little slower than last week, a sense of unease spreading through a company once considered unshakable. Toyota, the largest automaker on Earth, the brand Americans trusted more than almost any other, is collapsing inside the United States. And the most astonishing part? It isn't collapsing because of competition or innovation or technology. It's collapsing because America first backfired. When Donald Trump returned with a promise to punish foreign automakers and bring American car jobs back home, the political message was powerful. Tariffs were raised. Trade agreements were challenged. Import rules hardened. Washington believed it could force global giants like Toyota to bend under pressure. But the global auto industry doesn't bend, it calculates. And Toyota's calculation was devastating. For decades, Toyota invested billions into the American heartland. It built factories in Kentucky, Texas, Indiana, giving tens of thousands of Americans stable jobs. The Camry became America's best-selling sedan for 19 straight years. The RAV4 became the new national family car. Toyota wasn't just visiting the U.S., it embedded itself deep into the American way of life. But the moment the new wave of tariffs hit, the ground shifted. Parts coming from Japan, Thailand, Malaysia, and Europe were slapped with steep import duties, some reaching above 30%, others nearing 50%. Steel became more expensive, aluminum too. Even hybrid batteries, the core of Toyota's technological identity, were suddenly trapped behind tariff walls. Inside Toyota's American operations, the numbers began falling like dominoes. A single Camry became thousands of dollars more expensive to build. A single hybrid RAV4 battery soared in cost. A single supply chain delay multiplied into millions in losses. The company that used to dominate American roads was suddenly being punished simply for being global. Meanwhile, Trump declared victory. He told crowds that tariffs would force Toyota to bring every job back to U.S. soil. But Toyota's executives saw a very different path. One shaped not by politics, but by economics. And that path didn't lead south. It led north. Canada, stable, predictable, quietly strategic, became the new gravitational force in Toyota's North American strategy. While America raised walls, Canada opened doors. While U.S. policy became unpredictable, Canada offered certainty. And while America tried to isolate foreign automakers, Canada made itself the safest place to build their future. Toyota didn't collapse because it was weak. It collapsed because the system around it became impossible to survive. And as America first reshapes the continent, one truth is emerging. The world's biggest automaker isn't choosing the loudest market. It's choosing the most stable one. The first sign of Toyota's unraveling in America wasn't a shutdown, it was a slowdown. Production schedules tightened, parts warehouses that once operated with flawless rhythm began showing delays. Supply chain managers reported costs spiking faster than they could adjust budgets. And then came the internal memos, cautious at first, then urgent, then unmistakably clear. Toyota's U.S. operations were no longer financially sustainable. The trigger was simple yet devastating. Tariffs on imported components. Toyota's vehicles may be assembled in America, but their DNA is global. Thousands of parts come from Japan, Southeast Asia, and European suppliers. Under the new trade rules, those once affordable imports were slapped with massive duties, often 25%, 35%, even 50%. Every bolt, every wiring harness, every semiconductor, every hybrid battery cell became a financial liability. Inside Toyota's North American headquarters, analysts ran cost simulations that looked like disaster forecasts. A single RAV4 hybrid battery that used to cost $2,000 suddenly cost nearly $4,000. A catalytic converter tripled in price. certain electronic components became so expensive that Toyota began canceling trim levels entirely. And then came the breaking point. Toyota's signature EV programs, the very projects meant to power America's electric future, became impossible to build profitably on U.S. soil. The factories that once symbolized American manufacturing strength were suddenly competing with a tariff wall that choked every dollar of progress. But while the U.S. was isolating itself, Canada was playing a different game. Under the CPTPP and Canada-Japan trade relationships, Toyota could import advanced EV components tariff-free. No penalties, no instability, no political whiplash. And unlike the US, Canada had already invested billions into EV battery plants, rare mineral processing, and clean energy infrastructure. The choice was obvious. The economics were undeniable, and the shift began. Toyota started rerouting supply chains north, quietly but decisively. The Ontario automotive hub, long respected but rarely celebrated, suddenly became the center of gravity for Japan's manufacturing future. Cities like Cambridge, Woodstock, and Alliston saw new investments, new EV lines, new research partnerships, and a wave of skilled jobs. Meanwhile, in American towns built around Toyota plants, uncertainty spread like fog. Workers watched as EV production schedules shrank, battery programs moved away, and investment announcements grew silent. A company that once championed American manufacturing was now retreating from it, not out of preference, but out of necessity. Analysts call it tariff-induced migration. But Toyota executives see it as something simpler: survival. Canada's advantage isn't just cheaper imports, it's alignment. The country offers predictable trade policy, access to rare mineral mines, EV battery mega projects, a stable, cooperative regulatory environment, free trade channels to both Asia and North America. In an industry defined by long-term planning, Canada became the only place where Toyota could plan anything at all. And as the shift accelerated, one truth became impossible to ignore. America tried to force Toyota deeper into the US. But instead, America pushed Toyota into Canada. Not because Toyota wanted to leave, but because the math, the politics, and the future left it no other choice. History rarely repeats itself in the exact same way, but sometimes it rhymes so loudly that ignoring it becomes impossible. In the early 1980s, Ronald Reagan tried to stop Japanese automakers from dominating the US market by imposing strict import limits. America hoped those limits would force Toyota, Honda, and Nissan to build more cars in the United States. Instead, Japan simply shifted north. They built massive factories in Ontario, bypassed US trade walls, and quietly turned Canada into the manufacturing backdoor of the North American auto industry. 4 decades later, the same strategy has returned, not out of nostalgia, but out of necessity. And this time, the stakes are not gasoline engines and steel frames. This time, the battle is over EVs, the technology that will define the next century of global power. When Trump's new America First tariffs hit, Washington believed it could strong-arm Toyota into expanding inside U.S. borders. But the global economy of 2025 is not the economy of 1985. EV production requires minerals, batteries, clean energy grids, multi-country supply chains, and decades of stability. Tariffs don't build stability. They destroy it. So Toyota did exactly what its history taught it to do. It adapted. Canada became the natural winner, not because it was bigger, richer, or louder, but because it was consistent. A nation with predictable policy, strong trade alliances, and a government willing to invest in the industries of tomorrow. The critical minerals Toyota needs, lithium, nickel, cobalt, graphite, are all found in Canada's northern territories. The battery plants it needs are being built with government support in Ontario and Quebec. And the international trade links that keep Toyota competitive stretch across the Pacific without a single tariff barrier in sight. The United States, meanwhile, is discovering a painful truth. Protectionism doesn't protect, it isolates. Factories meant to expand are scaling back. EV programs meant to launch are being shelved. Engineers hired for next-generation projects are being reassigned or let go. The dream that America would dominate the EV era is eroding, one policy at a time. Meanwhile, Toyota is building a new future on Canadian soil, one that integrates rare mineral mines with battery factories, R&D centers, and export routes that lead back into the U.S. market. but without the cost penalties of producing directly in America. It is strategic, it is quiet, and it is working. Economists now warn that America's attempt to reclaim manufacturing leadership has instead accelerated a continental shift. Japan's most powerful automaker has shown that global companies will always choose stability over threats, structure over slogans, and long-term security over short-term political theater. Canada didn't steal Toyota's future, America handed it over. And as the world moves deeper into the electric age, one lesson becomes unmistakable. The nations that win aren't the ones shouting the loudest, they're the ones keeping the doors open, the partnership steady, and the future predictable. Toyota's collapse in America isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new North American reality. One where Canada stands at the center, and the United States watches history repeat itself from the sidelines.